for that. So we want to do our on-arrival question next. And so different people have been asking questions about this nature of the Mooc, and questions about how to design it and where we are and the scope and so forth. So at our meeting on Saturday, we asked this question, got a lot of different questions from people. And if you see on the meeting outline there, I put it all into the Mooc questions. So there's a web page with all the different questions. So getting a whole frequently asked questions list there. So that was so I wanted to have everyone kind of, there you go.
Sorry.
Everyone, have everyone, kind of just hear where everyone is. And that's what the reason was for the question. And so, Mimi, I was hearing for you, it's like you just go along with it. You don't have any questions. You're just trying it out. And then once we've sort of done gone through the course, then you'll have responses to it, is basically. So you're very open and just kind of going with the flow, sort of. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. I would like to know what the concerns of the other people are, because I vividly remember the discussion we had with Stefan. I think Ingrid was not with us on that day, but Stefan talked about his concerns, what might happen if we run an event, and some people might be more aggressive than the normal, and they might try to use offensive language or try to fight, whatever. So he had some concerns. I found them very reasonable. I would really like to hear what other people think. My personal view is that when we try to design something, we try with to do it in small scale. And of course, we will not set up an event and start talking about racism in the States, for example, which is, racism in the States that hurts no matter where you discuss it. But I would try to talk about little less sensitive issues to see how it goes, and then we can rearrange our activities. I think this is how I do whatever I have to do.
Okay, so I added those to the list that you would like to know what other people's concerns are, and you can go to the Mooc page. There's a whole list of other people's comments, questions there, and that you are kind of interested in looking at problem areas that people have, but not too big of problems, having some kind of lessons around that, and that also that you kind of go with the flow, and then once you've sort of done this training, you'll kind of have ideas to build on. Is that sort of it? Did I kind of
go with the flow? What does it mean?
Oh, so you take the training, like we're doing the 16-week training, and then once you've experienced it, then you'll have feedback, I guess would be a better way.
Okay. I understand the meaning, but I didn't know how exactly you meant it now, because I think that it's more of a trial and error thing. I think going with the flow means that, I don't have any clear view. I just want to see, that something is not well shaped. But I think that through trial and error, you know what you want to do, but you want first to try something, get feedback, try again, get feedback. So this is how I have it in my mind. But for sure, the goal should be clear every time.
Okay, I'm just writing it down. So you're saying that more accurate is it's trial and error, sort of like prototyping. You try it, and then you get feedback, then you try it again and get feedback. So that's a bit more.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's good. That's sort of what we're doing. We're doing the 16-week training and then see how it works. Using the book. What parts do we like? What don't we like? What needs modification and so forth. So yeah, so that's great. So Ingrid, do you want to share yours? I don't know if you had some more, but I just jotted down a couple that you'd mentioned in previous communications.
Yeah, I think to me, the most important one kind of is what, after we do it, how will you know it was successful? What do you expect? I mean, do you expect people's behavior to change, to have, I mean, how will you, Edwin, when you think about it, when it's like, say, a year after it's out there, how will you determine this was a success? What would tell you that?
Mm.
Do you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have right now, it's like not a clear, for me, it's kind of like a bigger picture that it would get into, like politicians would be doing an empathy circle that's kind of getting out in society, that you start seeing it echoed in society, kind of at the larger picture. But that's, our scope is just sort of the beginning aspect of it. So it would be, it would be that a lot of people are taking the training, and it would be more of a qualitative feedback. It's like, oh, this is really good. This is really meaningful. It's like when we set up the empathy tent, people come and they say, we're in the middle of this chaos, these battles, people are fighting, and we have this little empathy tent that's this beacon of peace, calm, and empathy. And people come by and say, oh, I'm so grateful that you're here. It's like, my friends are empathic and caring, and that's the type of environment I try to create. And here is this chaos, people beating up on each other, and here's this little beacon of empathy. So grateful that you're here. It's kind of like holding space for that way of being. So that's kind of like a qualitative, way that I feel like, hey, we're being successful in what we're doing. And if I was really successful, they would be joining us and kind of helping. So, right, they would be building a movement. People would sort of be joining this movement. So those are a couple. So that's...
Yeah. I think answering that question helps you develop it, because it helps guide you. And sometimes answering what would it look like if it was successful, or what would the outcomes be? It can help sometimes be a good question to help you figure out how to do it.
So do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what for you would be?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it's numbers. I mean, one thing could be how many people actually take it and complete it. Maybe it's reviews that people have given it. Maybe it's you have empathy, so many people doing empathy tents in so many cities. I don't know. There's it kind of depends on what you really want, and I think that helps guide the training too.
Do you have any thoughts, Mimi? Like, what do you see as success?
First of all, I find Ingrid's comment very thoughtful. And I think that what is missing from what we are doing now, not in a negative sense, but how we could just improve our project, is for people to understand that the hours we spend together are not just 2 hours of our life because we don't have anything better to do. So how can you, once you are the instructor here, can check that the people who participate in every team have really deeply realized what empathy is, and could do something small or bigger in their society life that could prove that yes, all this, your investment of time in the first place, yours, once you have designed it, and of course all the other participants who are in every meeting together, that all this investment of time can have an outcome. I mean, are we doing something? Are we really into empathy, or we are just having some good time all together? And for that purpose, I think that people who participate in the team should know that, you know, we have this meeting, 6 meetings or 16 meetings, and at the end, I would like you to do something. But this something might not be just I want you to organize a tent, because this is a very big project and people will not be ready to do that. But we could write something, or we could just, I don't know, synthesize something. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming right now. But this something will be the product, the outcome of what we have really realized after spending all these hours all together. And also, I think by doing this, a member or somebody who joins your project will understand that this is something serious. I mean, this is not just, you know, sometime at the playground. We're trying to do something serious here. We'll take the initiative even more seriously, and by doing this, probably we'll be in a position to evaluate if our project has achieved its goal or not. Am I clear?
Yeah, let me reflect that. So you would like people to have a sense that there's all these meetings, that it's an investment of time and that it has an outcome somewhere. And that's, again, what is that outcome? And at the end, that we actually do something. For example, we write up some papers, we synthesize the material, and that this is a serious project, and that we're doing something serious that has, you know, meaning, and you know what, you know, to have that clear sense.
I mean, each one of us. I'm sorry. Have you completed your point?
No, I was reflecting what I was hearing you say.
Oh, okay. Yes, I mean, for each one of us comes from a different field. For example, I have to do with education. So my project might have been with how I just use empathy in my classes. How better have I become at using empathy in my classes after attending all these meetings? For example, how do I manage crisis, my students' complaints, my students' challenges? So I could just write something or show it somehow, and this would be a proof that, oh yeah, we had this girl from Greece and she was an educator and she did this and this and this. And we can see that, yes, she realized, she has a clear idea about what empathy in practice is. We're not just talking the talking and we have no practical outcome. So Stefan, for example, who is a psychiatrist, could do something else, and Ingrid could think about something different. She knows better. So each one of us would say, you know what, I think I can just, how can I say, evaluate my progress and show it and share it with you by doing this. I'm sorry, I don't know the this in each case because I haven't prepared anything before our discussion. But I think that it's nice for us to think about it a little bit and maybe discuss next time in more detail.
So it's a bit of a self-evaluation. It's like, how do you see yourself having benefited from this training, and just kind of hearing from everyone, and that we write it down and then share it, and that's sort of the success, right? It's showing how you yourself have benefited, and that kind of helps articulate some success.
Yes, because for example, Stefan wanted to attend these meetings because he wants to do something with his students, and he might prepare something, and we might say, oh, Stefan, this is good, but what if you, I mean, we could offer feedback, or you could offer feedback to me. So this is not just for us to, for our own benefit. It is a proof that we are serious enough, we did some job, and we are ready to communicate what we've learned to other people in our micro world.
Okay, so yeah, so that's part of determining success is going to be kind of personal. Like, have you felt personal success, and tell your story of what is that personal success. So we need a way of capturing and articulate, capturing and documenting those personal successes. Yeah. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, I mean, not success, that we have really understood what empathy is. That is not just a term we played with and just, okay, this is the end of the sentence, goodbye, nice being with you, and I forgot everything. No, I realized what this is, and I'm ready to use it in my professional, personal, or whatever life I have. So the seminars had the goal, and the goal is achieved in the sense that now I know how to use it in my life and in the life of others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and capturing that and articulating it. Yeah, oh, that's good. So so we just posed the question of success. We can ask that through all the other teams and kind of gather insights about how to measure success. I have a story where, I think I'd mentioned it, where I did some mediation in my family. They were all very skeptical about empathy. I mediated a family conflict, and it ended with a happy ending, and everybody kind of hugged and all that kind of stuff. And it was like a huge success in my family. Just having done all this practice with empathic listening, I was able to, in the family mediate this, and it was huge. It's very transformative, and I did write that up as a little article on the website. So kind of gathering stories like that would be helpful. So if one thing is success is with these design teams is, getting that training together, that we make available, and then so that would be one thing. But then people who take that training, what is its success for them too? You need to look at.
But it seems a little like I think Demetra said, being able to use it or being able to apply it. That to me is an outcome that everyone who goes through the training should at least come out with being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we also have to, Ed, you have contacted these people. How many people throughout the last year, for example, joined one of the groups and tried this out, and then they didn't feel that was quite good for them? Why did they leave? Why some people decided not to continue? There would be different reasons, but if we could just sending them an email, or if you already know and you just sum up all these reasons, then we will understand that some people might have thought that this is just a gathering, but without aiming to anything practical. That is just a discussion. Okay, we discuss empathy. Okay, and after that what? Okay, 6 meetings done. And after that what?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So, one thing is. So anyway, we posed a question. I think we kind of fleshed this out and can keep building on it. Yeah. And one of the things is people are able to hold empathy circles, that they're able to facilitate empathy circles. That are they successful in doing that? In their families or with friends. So that could be a form of success too. But we don't need to answer it fully at this point. So the other question you had was the target audience.
Yeah, well, I just think it helps whenever you're designing a course or something. It helps to know who are you trying to reach. And then that also helps in getting out the information for people to take it, to let them know that it's there. And sometimes if you make it too big, it's really hard it's too much content. It's too hard to deal with. So if you make the audience too big. So anyway, so I think it's a good question. Who do you see as who's the target audience for this course? And what do they come when, and then what do those people bring? What level of knowledge do they have when they come into it? And maybe it doesn't matter. Do they come in with no knowledge of empathy at all? And if that's part of the target audience, then you're going to have to start a little bit lower about what empathy is, maybe, and teaching a little bit more compared to people who might be more familiar with it.
I was kind of going for the broadest, to do the core practice that I see is the empathy circle. It's people in a group like we've been doing. One person speaks, the other person reflects back, and then kind of turn taking, and that is a kind of a core practice that anyone can use. For example, Lou, who's in in our empathy tent team, in his community, they've been having some kind of issues, some problems, and at a cafe, they set up sort of an empathy cafe where they had 25 people, and he was able to just teach a few people on how to facilitate an empathy circle, and then the community had a dialogue with using the empathy circle model as a way of having constructive and kind of safer dialogues. So, and that's like just anybody, I think just that empathic listening at the empathy, doing an empathy circle format is like the kind of the core practice that anyone can kind of step into and get immediate benefits. You can take this to your family or friends or whatever, and you just get immediate, quick benefit without even going into the deeper feelings and needs and all that kind of.
Yeah. So kind of introductory. Because I think of that one woman who was with our group initially, the woman who knew the author. I can't remember her name, and remember she dropped out. And I think one reason she said a time commitment, but I think another reason she dropped out is because she already knew, she already had a level of skill. I think she already knew how to be empathic with other people. And I think she felt that it wouldn't provide her enough benefit. That's a total guess. I don't know for sure. But I think even knowing that it's kind of an introductory level, that it's for people who don't know. Of course, people who maybe have knowledge of it could gain some too, benefit from it, but that helps gear it that tells me more information.
Yes, that's really it. This is like, this is sort of like the boot camp, right? Is how I see it. It's like the military, your first 8 weeks of boot camp training, everybody starts with this basic boot camp. That's how I've been seeing the training for the public, and is for that most basic first step training that people can kind of get started with. So
right.
And to articulate that, say this is, we're kind of practicing this, but our intention is to also create this training and design it. And I know I think it was Kathy, she had there's a group called Better Angels.
Oh, that's right.
That is, they're doing kind of a facilitated training for the political left and right to dialogue with each other. And so she wanted to be a facilitator, for that group. So that's kind of what she was interested in doing, their facilitation training, I think. But I think what we're doing is also very much for facilitating dialogue between the political left and right, and it's much easier. And it can be a process that's not as heavily facilitation led. That if people learn this basic process, they can bring together their own group and then hold the dialogue with these basic rules that can hold quite a bit of conflict. So, yeah. So, yeah, does that, how does that sound? Or does that kind of address, does that seem like it kind of addresses that question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, cool. Then I did want to share something. The other thing is you talked about the scope, which I thought was really good to sort of address. And I create a little image here that I wanted to share. And so that was the first question, is like, what is the scope of the Mooc? So we kind of have been talking about that. Let's see, but here's a little image I made, and see if I can, let me get these images out. Okay, there we go. Okay, I wanted to get some feedback on this. So this was, might not be totally clear. with, this is just something I'm making making with Microsoft Publisher. So we have our vision, kind of the big vision that we're working towards, which is building a culture of empathy. So it's really kind of a big global, vision that could be seen as overwhelming. But and the journey of 1,000 miles and a journey to build a culture of empathy begins with one small step. First baby steps of our journey is lessons 1 through 16. So right now we have the prototype of the book of lessons 1 through 16. And that's, let me zoom in a little bit. And so the first baby steps is developing a mutual empathic listening heart set and skill set. So this is our lessons here. It's just making a little image. We have lesson 1, 2, 3. It could be even broken into kind of into modules, and then, and this is kind of like the most basic introductory steps, but that we have the vision, and there's going to be a lot of steps in between, everything from empathy tents or whatever people want to do. But so that's so anyway, that was kind of addressing the scopes question. So our scope is just this initial first step, is the scope of the training that we're trying to design. So any kind of thoughts or feedback on, I don't know, does this help, or is it create any clarity, or is it just?
I don't have to comment anything on the photo. I think that it can communicate the meaning you want to communicate. But I thought about the following: what if we are asked every week when we join the group? What if we talk about any chances we had during the last week to practice empathy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, didn't have the chance to do something. I might say that, you know what? It was 2 days ago that my student said this, or my mom said this, and I was in a position to manage my feelings a little better and just react by doing this, something that I wouldn't have done 2 months ago, probably. What if we try to do something like this, and this would show that, hey, something is changing here. I can measure it. With the experience I have during the week. And I want to say also something else, that when it comes to empathy and these kind of precious qualities, many people are in a position to share all the theoretical background related to this term, but empathy is not just a term. It's mainly a way of living, as you have said at some point, Edwin, and it has, I think that 98% has to do with practice. And also in this field, there are people who say, you know what, I can talk about empathy and compassion, and they are, how can I say, they look as if they are in love with themselves, because they talk about things that people would like to hear. But when it comes to empathy, it's not about how I talk about it, it's all about how I practice it. Every day, not only during our sessions, every day.
So it's really, so what I'm hearing there is like that there's an exercise where you can, during the week, you can have experiences with what was your experience with empathy, and then you, in the meeting or in our get together, then you talk about what were your successes or struggles, and then have a time for talking and sort of working on those.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I had a fight with, I had to deal with a colleague that was very aggressive, whatever, and the first place I was ready to, answer back, but then I said, okay, I want really to check what the other person is trying to tell me. even though I find it crazy, but I try to do that. So I want to share with my group and say that, you know what, at this very moment, I was able to manage my feelings and try to build bridges if I was successful at this. Because I might say I tried to do it, but you know what, the tension was so high that I failed. I need more empathy training.
Yeah, and you like a space where you could share that, like share, well, I failed here and I need to be heard about it because this is a struggle. I need
help.
I really like the idea of sharing what's worked and what hasn't worked with us in the past week with it.
Yeah, you know, just in the 2 minutes, not a long story, but just an incident that we think that we have some meaning, would be meaningful for the others as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a bit what I've been looking at too. If there's sort of a scale of kind of very personal experience on one hand, and then there's sort of the more didactic information, you know, with like with the book, you know, he's trying to teach the different components, but it's not like real personal, really. And then sort of that scale, you know, like we could have a training which is just, you know, share your experience and then have an empathy, within the empathy circle, you share those pains, successes, questions, and then they just get sort of expressed and talked about. We do have, you know, the empathy circle time, which is you can talk about anything that's alive in you. So it could be like, you know, do a round or two to start with, like what has been your experience during the week, and then share that and, you know, maybe be heard about it, and then talk about the chapters too. So it's kind of like, yeah, Ingrid, you're kind of like saying yes, and
yeah,
like
I think that can work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so should we do that then? Like in the time period where we have the empathy circle component, that the first round or so is just how is your experience during the week been with empathy?
To start tonight?
Well, we did want to go into the blocks to empathy, do some kind of go into the try it.
I don't know. I didn't get it. I mean, I say tonight because here is 11 p.m. So, yeah. Do you mean that we should? Are we going to work on the roadblocks today, or?
Yeah, I want to do like about half the time talking about, you know, the design, which we were doing, and then kind of second half going through each of the roadblocks. So. So next week, do we start with next week we can just start with the empathy circle, talking about some experiences during the week and the chapter.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Ingrid, does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay.